They feed on human souls, the banshees do.
Episode 10 of Season 1 of Are You Afraid of the Dark? The Tale of Jake and the Leprechaun. Starts off on a somber note. Gary, the leader of this Midnight Society, with all his friends gathered around the campfire, explains that Frank, who's originally going to tell the story, has decided not to and wants to give his turn instead to Eric, and Eric explains that sadly his grandfather has died. And his grandfather told wonderful tales of Irish stories featuring pixies and leprechauns and maybe even banshees, and that he's going to attempt to retell a story that his grandfather used to tell him growing up. So we get a very Irish influenced episode. While it starts off on a very sad note, you think it might be a sad story, this ends up being a very fantasy oriented and lighthearted story. This is Eric's first story, and he's played by the actor Jacob Tierney. While we've seen Eric interact with the Midnight Society in previous episodes, he tends to be very sarcastic and snarky and a bit annoying. This is his first official tale. And recently he was in the TV series Letterman in 47 episodes, playing Glenn. And the director of Pregoland? Oh, that's where I want to go, Pregoland. A bunch of pregnant ladies are walking around. And this episode starts off with already some terrible Irish accents, which you're just going to have to get used to throughout this entire story.
Stand aside, boy! The battle's just begun!
They switch between this stage play that they're doing and then real life. So it starts off making you believe that this is a real life event that's playing out, but it's actually just part of a play. Which is pretty obvious, because even for Are You Afraid of the Dark, this stage looks really fake. Because they're practicing for a play that they're going to perform at the end. The main character, Jake, is playing a role with his mentor, Aaron, who's going to be the villain of this episode, and is really secretly a banshee. And Jake teams up with this little person named Sean, who's also part of the play, as they try to investigate and figure out who Aaron really is. Not exactly sure why they use the name Aaron as the name of an old Irish guy, but these are pretty generic names. Jake, Aaron, Sean. They find out that this old man Aaron is actually an evil banshee. Banshees are a type of pixies, in case you were wondering. And the little person Sean spends way too much time giving you exposition about what these banshees do, throwing all sorts of fantasy words at you, where they drink a tea with bluebells, foxgloves, and ragweed, and that the banshees feed on human souls, and every 7 years they need to devour another one to stay alive. And it looks like Aaron, the evil banshee, has his sights on Jake and is going to devour his soul. The best part of this episode is when we get to see the play at the end, where the audience can't tell whether Aaron, Sean, and Jake are really having a fantasy battle in real life or if it's just part of the play. The audience thinks it's part of the play, but we know that all these magic spells that they're casting is real. But they wait way too long to get to this part. The last 4 minutes are pretty decent, but we just get so much jargon about spells and the little person Sean having Jake eat a spider. Just a bunch of nonsense. I've been pretty nice to these episodes so far, because I think all the ones besides this one have been quite good, but I just don't get the feel of this one. It seems like they're throwing way too many things at the wall. They have a more straightforward story, but they keep veering off this path, and they have to keep collecting little items in order to take down Aaron. I still hate his name. Couldn't his name be like Connor or something? And the little person Sean is played by David Steinberg, who, like every little person, was in the 1988 fantasy movie Willow, and died very tragically in 2010 by, well, look it up. So we finally get to the battle at the end, and it's actually quite good. Aaron turns Jake into a frog. Then the little person Sean has to sprinkle dust to make sure Jake becomes a person again. And the audience is very impressed by all these feats and doesn't realize what's unfolding in front of them is the ultimate test of good and evil. The name of this play is Will-O the Wisp. Sure, a play on the movie Willow, featuring little people. But, as I mentioned, I don't think this is the best episode. The accents got to me. It's hard to understand what they're saying sometimes, and they throw so much jargon that is just useless. The actual battle where they fight the Banshee and the costume design of that is quite good. They should have just done more of that, because it really feels like in the middle they just had to fill space. But we have some fun facts. As I mentioned, of course, it's Eric's first story. Actually, this is an interesting one. This is the only story that includes the name of the protagonist. Tale of Jake and the Leprechaun. Jake, of course, being the protagonist. It says Benjamin Planer, who played Jake, was a regularly occurring character as Monkey Ears on Ready or Not, which starred Laura Bertrand, who appeared in the episode The Tale of the Lonely Ghost and The Tale of the Mystical Mirror. Ross Hall briefly made several appearances in the show as well. Yes, looking at these Wikipedias and IMDb's, you see the show Ready or Not in more people's bios than anything else. Are You Afraid of Dark was just a funnel into this other Canadian show, Ready or Not. Let's see if it's any good.
You want to come? You invited both of us, right?
Pushing, and no projectiles.
Well, it's no Clarissa Explains It All. I guess it would be fine if you were a kid in Canada in the 90s. But man, did half the staff go on to do this show. So get ready to hear a lot about Ready or Not. Maybe I'll dive in deeper to it later on, because this is like the sister show of Are You Afraid of the Dark. This is a particularly funny review. 2 out of 10 problems with this episode. And not the problems that I had with it. I love Are You Afraid of the Dark, and even though the show had some of the campiest subject matter, some of the worst acting I've ever seen, they're kids, I'm still a fan. However, this episode always irked me because of all the cultural inaccuracy. The writers of the script obviously just picked whatever they could from Irish folklore, threw them into a blender, and hit frappe. Let's start with the title of the play that the main character Jake stars in, Will-O-the-Wisp. The plot of the play has nothing to do with this particular light spirit. Yeah, I thought they were trying to reference the movie Willow. I still think they were, but Will-O-the-Wisp is a thing in fantasy that's a mysterious light, seen at night, especially over marshy grounds. And it's believed in folklore to lead people astray, so don't follow the Will-O-Wisp. Unless you're playing an RPG, in which case maybe you have to get it to gain power. Next, we'll look at the antagonist, Aaron. He's supposed to be a banshee. A banshee? First of all, and interestingly, this person spelled Aaron, A-A-R-O-N, but on everything else it's E-R-I-N. But maybe this person is right. Maybe it was supposed to be the male version of Aaron rather than E-R-I-N. Oh man, this person's smart. First of all, banshees were female spirits who were tied to a particular family and signaled when death was coming by their wailing. Aaron looks more like a troll or a goblin. This is quite nitpicky, but this person is onto something. Throughout this episode, it just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Supposedly Jake's turning into a leprechaun, but you just see him like sprout ears a couple times. Then you see Aaron with his shirt off and he just has like a lot of hair on his back. Like, the fantasy is inaccurate, which according to this person it is. It just didn't make any sense. It's like they were just throwing stuff at the wall. He's becoming a leprechaun. Well, not really. He just sprouts ears. He doesn't really do anything else. And lastly, but definitely not least, the changeling. In this episode, Aaron turns Jake into a frog right at the end. This is completely wrong. Historically, you better write this down. A changeling is the offspring of a fairy, troll, elf, or other legendary creature that has been secretly left in the place of a human child. It is not some amphibian that was once a boy. If the writers had just stayed true to Irish culture, this episode would have made a lot more sense. Or maybe they could just make it more clear that Jake was turning into a leprechaun and explain exactly why this banshee wanted to take his soul, but also turn him to a leprechaun. Also, he didn't turn him into a leprechaun, turned him into a frog. I agree. This is ridiculous. I gotta give this a nitpicky, but also a fact check true. Next up is Tale of the Dark music, and we're right back on track with more Are You Afraid of the Dark good episodes. I try to be very positive during this series, and that's been pretty easy so far, but this one isn't the best. A male banshee? What is this world coming to? Check out our playlist for all the other series we've covered. We're doing every episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark, almost finished Tales from the Dark Side, finished Monsters, Fear Itself. We're doing Mystery Science Theater 3000, Black Mirror, Pet Shop of Horrors, and Cowboy Bebop. Thanks a lot.